Hi, I'm Ryan Reynolds. As owner of Mint Mobile, I couldn't wait to make my first commercial for Spotify listeners. I thought, I'll tell them to go to mintmobile.com/Spotify to get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Then I thought, they'll never believe the owner bragging, so I'll bring on a real Mint customer who knows it's premium wireless for just $15 a month. Then I thought, how will they know it's not just me acting as a customer? Then I thought, what if they don't think I'm a good enough actor to play a customer? Then I cried and went to bed. The end.
New activation and upfront payment for 3-month plan required. Taxes and fees extra. Additional restrictions apply. See mintmobile.com for full terms.
This episode is brought to you by Dave. When you need money in a pinch, Dave can help. It's a banking app that can help you get up to $500 instantly. No interest, late fees, or credit check. Join the millions already using Dave to get financial relief and sign up for an extra cash account to get up to $500 instantly. Go to dave.com/Spotify or download the Dave app now. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees apply. Banking services provided by Evolve Bank and Trust, member FDIC.
There's been a bank heist in Philadelphia because there's $255 million missing, and it's in the hands of someone named Jalen Hurts. We mentioned it yesterday in case you missed it. He is the league's highest paid player ever in league history. $255 million, a 5-year deal. What does that mean for the Bengals? Why does it matter for Bengals fans? Well, because it has a lot to do with Joe Burrow, and we're going to talk exactly about what that means for Joe Burrow and the NFL as a whole. Welcome into another preseason edition or off-season edition podcast edition of the Strictly Stripes podcast. That's a mouthful. Muhammad Ahmad, Andrew Gillis, and Mike Neislick here with you on this fine, gorgeous Tuesday for those of you in the tri-state area and elsewhere. And I mean, guys, we just laid it out. 5 years, $255 million, 179.3 guaranteed total. Only Deshaun Watson has more guaranteed money, and 110 guaranteed at signing, which I think is the same thing, like the second most after Deshaun Watson. So Jalen Hurts is a very rich man, and what's crazy is he's only 24. He's going to be 25 in September, so he's still very young, and for him to make that much money, it's crazy. I mean, first of all, before we even kind of get into just the Burrow negotiations and you know what that kind of means for that, I mean, did you expect it to be that big? Like, do you think that deal makes sense for Hurts and the Eagles? Like, what do you guys think of that?
Well, I didn't expect it to be that big. I think
Me neither.
We kind of mentioned a few weeks ago when we were talking about a Burrow conversation that, I think there was a report that said, Hurts is going to make, over $50 million. And I believe I referenced that here on the pod. And, I remember kind of thinking, okay, that maybe feels like a little bit of a little bit of a shoot for the moon type of report there from Hurts's camp. It just never felt like 51 was going to be where they were going to land. You mentioned it. It's the highest AAV in terms of what a quarterback will make in NFL history, what a player will make in NFL history. Patrick Mahomes obviously signed that 10-year deal, so his total value is worth more. But yeah, I mean, you're talking about a guy who is, a rising player in the league. I've always liked Jalen Hurts, but I think everybody's kind of been surprised by how good he's been, and you're kind of betting on that trajectory. So it is a little weird, and it is a little unique to see a guy like that making $51 million. Because I really like Jalen Hurts, but it kind of begs the question now of what is Joe Burrow going to make? What is Justin Herbert going to make? I mean, God forbid, what are these quarterbacks going to make in
Lamar Jackson?
Years? Yeah, see, the Lamar thing is different. We'll get into that later. But right. I mean, what are these guys going to make? So it's a lot of coin. I think it's there are parts of it you can look at and say, okay, this is pretty applicable to the Burrow situation. There are parts of it that you can't. And it was a massive deal. If you look at the cap hits, they're actually really low for the next 4 years in order: 6.15, 13.56, 21.77, and then 31.77. That takes you through the 2026 season. So I think there's things you could look at and say, if that's how the Bengals structure Burrow, you're feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah, but then what are the last 2 years? I mean, are you essentially just giving up? Because, somebody did the numbers, I think I saw on Twitter yesterday, and it'd be like 79 and 86 in the last 2 years of the deal.
Who cares?
How do you have a roster at that point? Well, but okay, you say who cares, but what if they don't win the Super Bowl? and then you have 2 years of a terrible deal no matter what, essentially. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, so, well, what if they're a bad team?
Sure. It
what makes you think that, though? I mean, they just went to the Super Bowl. What makes you think that?
Well, because, I mean, I thought they had a very easy schedule. I mean,
Are you kidding?
Yeah, well, no, I mean, anything can happen. Like they can fall off here. Like that's not. I mean, that wouldn't be like the world's greatest travesty or anything like that. But I also kind of think you have to look at where the market is going for quarterbacks too. Like right now, we're talking about. I mean, it's April 18th as we record this. We're talking about Jalen Hurts making a deal that has an AAV of a maximum of $51 million a year, and total guarantees like $20 million shy of 200, and that's all well and good, but what are we going to be talking about in 2027? Like, what are the deals that are going to be coming through at that point? I don't know offhand. I can look this up as we record it, but I mean, what about the television contracts? Do those come up? Those always add influxes of money. Like, that always raises the cap significantly. Like there's a lot of different things that can happen over the next like 5 or so years that that would make that 71, what is it, 79 and 81 or whatever you said. There are a lot of different things that can happen that would kind of make those numbers look, frankly, like not insane, which is crazy to say now. But I think you're kind of looking at it, and it depends. There's roster bonuses and things like that. But to me, I don't hate it. That's if you've ever watched How I Met Your Mother, that's future Ted's problem, and I don't blame him. I don't blame him for doing it.
I've never seen that show, so I couldn't tell you. Have you seen that show, Mike?
No.
How I Met Your Mother? No.
It's very good.
I was about to say, how old is that? It's like, what, 10 years old now?
Something like that.
Is that the one with Neil Patrick Harris?
It's older than 10 years. Yeah, it is. It's older than 10 years.
The only thing I know about Neil Patrick Harris is that scene he had in Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. That is a classic that is almost as old as I am. That came out when I was like 5 years old, but don't ask me why I watched it so young. Anyways, back on topic. So, I mean, yeah, you kind of laid it out there. Like, so on the one hand, Mike is talking about, like what happens if, granted, I think, Mike, when you said what if they went in the Super Bowl, are you talking about like later down the road in the Hurts contract when like the cap hit gets significant? Like, is that what you were referring to specifically?
Well, my point is like you mentioned the 4 years, and so you basically have a 4-year window. 5.
What's
you have
a 5-year deal?
No. Okay, so what I was saying with those cap hit numbers were the first 4 years of the deal.
Okay.
That he mentioned. So you have a 4-year window because it's going to be sort of impossible to build a roster when you have $90 million at the quarterback position. And this team's already lost 3 defensive starters in the first day or 2 of free agency, and lost a lot of talent. I just think it puts a lot of pressure on the team. To sort of, I mean, the only way that deal is worth it, I think, is if you win a Super Bowl. I think that's the true for any of these quarterback contracts. Like, I think the Russell Wilson deal and the Kyler Murray deal could end up as 2 like the worst deals, in NFL history. And I don't think that's hyperbole. And I just think that at some point there's going to be a market correction. Obviously, it won't happen before Burrow signs his contract, but in terms of, is he worth it or not? I mean, his track record in the NFL isn't long enough, I don't think, to sort of justify it. But at the same time, teams are paying the premium at quarterback, so it's what the market bears. But me personally, I think eventually these teams are going to regret a lot of these contracts. It feels like the NBA, before the last strike, when the contracts teams had to get out of these just terrible deals that they were operating under. That at some point the world comes back to, everything comes back down to earth, because if you swing and a miss, like if Jalen Hurts is a miss, I mean, you've ruined your franchise for the length of the contract.
But see, here's the thing with that, though. I don't know if Hurts is. I think you saw enough from Jalen Hurts in this past year, especially where you feel good about him, and like I'm not going to say that hey, I'm not going to say anything crazy that he's going to rival Burrow or he's going to rival Mahomes, and yeah, I mean he had, I think I said this at the time, I think he had the best top to bottom roster in the league around him. I think 1 through 53, the Eagles were the best team in the league. They were the best, constructed. They were the most balanced. They were good pretty much everywhere you looked. And it's just, Patrick Mahomes exists, which is a problem for the Eagles, as they found out. What do they hang? Was it 38-35 in the Super Bowl?
38-35.
Yeah. So, you hang 35 in the Super Bowl and you lose. That's tough.
And you're up by 10 at halftime.
Yeah, that hurts for no pun intended. That hurts for Hurts. So I don't know. I just, you look at the cap figures here. He's only going to make 6.15. That was barely more than what he was going to make anyway. Next year he's going to make $7 million more. The following year, 8. The following year, 10. I just don't think that I think you've seen enough from Jalen to know that he's at the very least a productive NFL quarterback, and you can kind of figure that out. And again, we're talking about this without kind of knowing the specifics. Those haven't really been released yet. We haven't been able to look at, is there an out for them after the 2026 season when that cap hit's going to balloon? You never know. Maybe
there can't
you
be, right?
You can extend him later and, kind of do the same thing where you bring down cap hits in the short term, kind of sacrificing it for the long term. I don't know.
But they guaranteed $180 million of it, so that has to be guaranteed on the cap at some point. So the dead cap number would be astronomical at some point.
It's going to be really high. But I guess my point is, you can, it's when you have a quarterback like that, and in a league like this where you need a good quarterback, I don't know. I think you can make the case because, $75 million or whatever sounds insane now, but $51 million sounded insane 5 years ago. And, I just think that we're at a point where, you could convince me of a future where, you can kind of spread this thing out down the line. And again, if, like you said, if you win a Super Bowl, I think it's worth it. Banners hang forever. And if the Eagles win a Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts as quarterback, in the next 4 years, if you go on a run with, 2-3 division titles and a Super Bowl and maybe an NFC title appearance, I'm not sure anybody's going to sit there saying, I can't believe his cap hit 77 this year instead of, 65 or something like that. I'm just not sure that, I'm just not sure that it makes a ton of sense because, again, the counter argument to that is, well, you're paying him a lot of money in the short term, and you kind of have to give up the talented roster that you have right now.
So a quick note to make, Andrew, as far as kind of being a little bit shocked by all the coin that was given to him. So Brad Spielberger from PFF, I think about 2 weeks ago, he released his predictions and projections on what he thinks the quarterback contracts are going to look like. He predicted, he was actually close. He thought Hurts was going to be 4 years, $195 million total, $135 million guaranteed at signing. He was not that far off. He basically predicted Hurts to make about $49 million a year. He ended up making 51. He predicted 4 years. It ended up being 5. I think what was interesting though, was the fact that it was a 5-year deal. I didn't think it was going to be anything like the Mahomes 10-year deal, but I would have expected to be more like Josh Allen's because Josh Allen's is 6-7 years. I think his extension's 6-7 years. I wonder if maybe it was a compromise of okay, Jalen gets the money, but the Eagles will just shell it out sooner rather than later. So obviously, like Mike said, it is going to balloon the cap towards the very end of that deal, and you have to kind of deal with that. But it's would you rather just kind of bank on that for 5 years versus going in the long term, and then maybe you get to that 5th, 6th year, and it's I don't know about this. Whereas in this case, it's okay, you get to that 5th, 6th year option, and it's all right, if you want to stick with it, stick with it. If not, then you just got out of that situation. Of course, that's way down the road, but I think that was sort of the compromise that was made. But to kind of get back to the Burrow side of it, do you think it made sense for them to do it before Joe Burrow got his extension done?
I've been saying that I didn't think that the order mattered from the start. I think they're all sort of different situations. I think Joe Burrow's had the most success. So, he was going to probably get the most, but I think Hurts, I don't know what the case was for him getting more than he got. I think he got obviously a better than market value for what he's done and his sort of situation. And I don't know that Burrow would have affected it. Burrow has an argument, stats wise, performance wise. It's like I don't know what the argument is that Hurts could have made after Burrow signed that should be my deal.
Do you concur with that, Andrew? I mean, what do you think? Like, do you think it, like Mike said, it doesn't matter, or do you think there's something to be said about the Eagles' strategy?
No, I think it matters a little bit. I'm not going to say that it's going to change the game or anything like that. I'm not going to say that if what did Duke say? They have a framework of the deal, or they have an idea of what the deal is going to look like, and that's fine. And I'm not saying that Burrow's going to see a Hurts and a Herbert contract come through and say, hey, well, wait a minute, we're going to, go back on, weeks of work here, and we're going to change this up a little bit. No, I don't think it changes like that, but I do think that I guess it's kind of a chicken or the egg thing, because, nobody really knows what's happening behind closed doors with Herbert, with Burrow. You're kind of guessing, but are these the numbers that we're talking about? And it just feels, and the Hurts contract is just illuminating, or does the Hurts contract kind of change things? Does it make Burrow's deal go up more? Because, I mean, like Mike said, Burrow's got a case to make a lot more, and frankly, so does Herbert. So you're talking about guys that have better track records in terms of what they've done, and I think, frankly, I think Herbert's a better quarterback than Hurts. So, it's a tough question to ask. I do think it matters a little bit, just because now you're settled, where you're at, because the contract's going to keep going up and up and up. And I know we're going to talk about this later, but Burrow might be the highest paid quarterback in the league in 2 months, and then 6
or 2 weeks.
Later, yeah, whatever it is. And then 6 months later, whoopsie-doo, he's no longer the highest paid quarterback in the league. Like, I mean, Mahomes, remember when he signed that massive deal, everybody went, oh my God, and blah, 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 blah.
10 years.
Yeah, now,
total 450.
Now, if you look at the AAV, Mahomes is 6th, which is, just a ridiculously good contract for the Chiefs if you look at it. But yeah, I just, I don't know. It's a tough question to answer. I think it matters a little bit, though.
Man, that Chiefs contract, I think you can literally say that's the gift that keeps on giving. Like, with the way you just laid it out, like, that's the best way to sum it. Not to focus too much on Hurts, but, like, I think, what kind of made sense where I think they were smart was, like, you give him that big average of that $51 million a year, because I feel like at that point you're kind of avoiding, like, that whole Deshaun Watson full guaranteed issue that we've talked about a lot with the Lamar Jackson mess and everything. You throw him that big signing bonus. It's huge dollars versus, like, the literal peanuts they were going to pay him on his rookie contract. Like, that rookie contract was cheap. Like, we talk about the Bengals getting a steal with those rookie contracts with Higgins and Chase and Burrow. Yeah, the Eagles got way more of a steal with Hurts' deal. But when we come back, we're going to talk about what should Joe Burrow's contract look like, how should it compare to Hurts and Herbert and everyone in between, and how will that stack the quarterback salaries in the league. Talk all of that and much more to come right here on the Strictly Stripes podcast. Thanks for staying with us on the Strictly Stripes podcast. We've talked a lot about Jalen Hurts' deal, what that means for NFL quarterbacks, specifically in this case Joe Burrow. We talked about all the implications that it would have for him, with the way things were laid out. But I was going to say, what we haven't really talked about, and this is the biggest question I think, is, we know the terms of Hurts' deal, so maybe it helps with the guessing game because you have like a baseline at this point for what him and Herbert, and eventually at some point down the road, Trevor Lawrence in a year are going to make. I guess it's not a matter of if and what Burrow will make, but like, should Burrow make more than Hurts, or do you think, you see a situation where it's about the same, or maybe like we said, like maybe he takes not a pay cut, but like he gets more of that like 48, 49 mil that you're kind of seeing from like Russell Wilson and like Kyler Murray and, Deshaun Watson? Or do you think, like that's the baseline, he's going to make at least 51, probably should make more than that?
Well, he's earned it. He's earned more than Hurts. Just he's taken him to, 2020 year, the team was not very good around him. and he got hurt. And then the following year they go to the Super Bowl, and the following year they go to the AFC Championship game. So, I mean, he's earned, I think he's kind of cemented himself as a top 3 quarterback in the league. He's earned that. He's earned like the right, or however you want to phrase it, to make more than Hurts. So I think he will make more than Hurts. To me, it's just the thing that I am interested in now in terms of, and I mean, make more than Hurts in terms of AAV. The thing that I am interested in now, I think the 2 numbers that matter are going to be the length of the term. How long are they going to lock him up? And obviously the total guarantees. Those are the 2 big ones right now, because I think it's pretty fair to pencil Burrow in, probably 55, maybe even north of 55 at this point.
What do you think, Mike? Is that like north of 55? You think that's going to happen for Joe Burrow?
I mean, sure. I mean, I think 50 million is where they should start, and if he wants to be the highest paid player, add $1 to Hurts' contract.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Burrow's earned every penny of what he's going to get, but I guess what I was asking is I phrased it the wrong way. Not a matter of does he deserve more or less, but do you think the Bengals look and say, look, that's what Jalen is making. We can maybe pay you the same, but if we pay you more, if we go 52, 53, 54, then that makes it harder for us, to keep to keep Jamar. It's going to be harder to extend other guys, even Logan Wilson, if that's in the conversation. Do you think it gets to a point where it's they tell Joe, we'll put you in that tier with Jalen, but, how do you feel about, keeping the guys around you? Do you think that might be part of the conversation? Or do you think, like Andrew said, that's just more of Duke Tobin's job to worry about keeping T and keeping Logan, and then just really worrying about Joe on his own?
Yeah, I've said for weeks that I think that it's Duke Tobin's job to figure that out. To me, that I understand Burrow needs to be concerned with that, but that shouldn't really kind of drive him, I don't think. And kind of like I said too, you can make the case that maybe Burrow would take less to try and keep some of the guys in town. But again, using the math that you just said, you said maybe he comes in at the 45, 48, 49, 50 kind of number, and he doesn't take as much as Hurts, but okay, maybe he wants to make more than Hurts, and now you bump it up to 55. Well, you're talking about $7 million at the most. The guys that are making, anywhere from $5 to $7 million against the cap right now on the Bengals, currently are Jermaine Pratt, Ted Karras, Mike Hilton, and Chidobe Awuzie. So Chidobe Awuzie is making 7.9 against the cap. Jermaine Pratt's making 5.4. So you're not talking about, bringing back a T. Higgins. You're not talking about, bringing back a, probably even a Logan Wilson. You're kind of talking about, okay, well, now you can keep a Jermaine Pratt type, or now you can bring in a Ted Karras in free agency. I don't see it as being kind of, Burrow kind of leaving money on the table as this big, oh my goodness moment that I think some people kind of think is going to happen.
Well, I don't know why it has to be leaving money on the table. I mean, he could negotiate. I mean, whatever. We don't know what's important to him, whether it's the actual value or guaranteed money. What if he instead of taking 55, took 45 a year, but got it all guaranteed? I mean, that might be more appealing to him, and that might help the Bengals cap situation. So I think there are ways of helping the team that don't necessarily sort of hurt the value of his deal. Having it all guaranteed or at that high amount, I think would be of value to a lot of players. And so I don't know. I view it a little differently. I think there's room for both sides to sort of win. I'm not saying he has to take a ton less, but because I think that you can counter that by, like I said, giving him guaranteed money. And that's important. I mean, the playing days aren't guaranteed, and he's already suffered a major injury during his career. So I think you could easily see that being something that happens, but at the same time, we don't know. I mean, he could just be like, I want $70 million. I'm not going any lower. I don't think that's his approach, but I mean, we don't really know what he sort of values and sort of the monetary part of it.
Yeah. And I made this case, a few weeks ago. I think in pretty much any way you spin it, I think when this contract is done, I think you can kind of look at this and say, Joe Burrow left money on the table because, like Mike said, I mean, let's pretend Joe Burrow walks in and says 10 years, 600 mil, and he just sits there and stares. What are they going to say? No, like the Bengals are not going to. The Bengals can't really say no to him at this point. So I think there's in pretty much any case, theoretically, quote unquote, Joe Burrow left money on the table. However you want to phrase that. So, but like Mike said, I think that is the way that you get around this. Whether it's hey, it's a longer term deal, with more guarantees, or you have guarantees. You have roster bonuses and things like that for, the 6-7 years. Again, because, fully guaranteed is different than total guarantees. And, there's different ways to do it. And the NFL cap is a really confusing area to try and figure out if you don't study this thing for your job. So there are different vacuums that you could put money in that would kind of help the team out.
The way you just said, like, Joe Burrow's going to walk in looking them dead center in the eye, just like 10 years, 600 million. Like, I can imagine him just like walking in and saying that, and there just being like an awkward silence.
Yeah. I mean,
It's just funny.
And obviously Joe Burrow, I mean, I don't know how much, obviously Joe Burrow's involved in these negotiations. Like if he's actively sitting down with Duke Tobin, like you would see.
Like Lamar Jackson is.
Yeah. I'm not pretending this is like Jerry Maguire or whatever, but I think this is, like his agent is obviously going to handle a lot of this, but I mean, it's just, to me, it's as you kind of saw from the Lamar stuff, it is hard to negotiate when a player, when you have to negotiate with a player. So I'm not saying that, but I mean, the Bengals kind of like, you're at a point where Burrow is everything to this franchise right now. So you can't really tell him no, but I don't think Burrow's going to sit down and, like Mike said, say, $70 million a year or whatever. I don't.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's not like
we're all on the same page there that, he's not going to ask for something insane, but I think kind of by that definition, then you could say that he's leaving money on the table and he's not making what he could be making.
Just walks in like Scarface, like the world is yours. Just take what you want from it. Not that simple. It's not how the world works. If it did, then the world would be in a whole different place. But that was just funny. But like, you're right, though. I mean, he has the leverage. Like, what are you going to do? Say no to the guy that literally brought you out of the ashes? Like, I think people sometimes forget, like, this is what winning does to you. You're talking about a team that was like, respectfully, the laughing stock of the NFL to go 2-14, and then your number one overall pick tears ACL. Like, there were people saying, we can't forget, this is 2-3 years ago. People were saying when Burrow tore his ACL, they were like, "Yep, Carson Palmer, repeat, rinse, wash, repeat." Same thing with Andy Dalton. Like, people were saying it's just the same old Bengals. Well, he proved otherwise, and so I think like the leverage is definitely there, whether it's for him and or his agent. I agree with you on that, but I want to kind of like sort of settle the dust on this because we talked about what it would mean for Justin Herbert, because like that's another 2020 draft class quarterback that's up for an extension like Jalen Hurts and Burrow. We talked about kind of where things are now with like the Russell Wilson deal, the Deshaun Watson deal, the Kyler Murray deal. So like when Burrow gets his deal done and when Hurts gets, and I'm sorry, not Hurts, obviously he did his. When Burrow and Herbert get their deals done, whenever that is, 2 weeks, 2 months, training camp. I mean, like, how do you think the top 5 highest paid quarterbacks in average annual value will be? Like, who do you think will be the highest paid annually, 5th most annually? Like, how would you kind of rank that order? Like, if I'm going to go first, like, honestly, I would say, I think it's going to be Burrow. I think he's just going to top the chart. I think whether he goes before or after Herbert doesn't matter. I think he's just going to prove that he's worth the most value. I think Herbert's going to be second. I think he tops Hurts whenever Herbert gets his done. Then I think Jalen sits at number 3. And then I guess naturally after that it would be Aaron Rodgers at number 4 because he's making like 50.3. And then after that it would be Russell Wilson. That's kind of my order. But what do you guys think of that?
Well, I think I don't know about giving an order. I just think it's whoever's next. Burrow and Herbert.
But who do you think is going to next? Like, if you just had to play the guessing game, like, how do you think that's going to go?
Well, I mean, next, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I would be guessing without any evidence. With Burrow and Herbert. So, like, if Burrow signs last, Herbert's going to be first, and then all of a sudden he's not going to be first. And you're just going to kind of see guys get knocked down the line, and it's crazy to think, but we are a year away from Trevor Lawrence being in this exact same conversation where he's all of a sudden eligible for a contract extension because Trevor Lawrence is going into his third NFL year. And the 2021 quarterback class was pretty bad. If you kind of look at it, I mean, you had Lawrence, but then Zach Wilson, Trey Lance hasn't done anything. And then you get to the later rounds, Kyle Trask, Kellen Mond, Ian Book, Sam Ellinger. Like the quarterback class is not great. So, there's not going to be a ton of names like there are for the 2020 year, but like Lawrence is going to get paid. And I mean, hell, like Lawrence is going to make a lot of money. And I think there's a really strong case to be made that, Lawrence is going to make more than Burrow if he signs next year or a year after that, just because that's the way that these things kind of work.
Will he though? I don't know. But what if Lawrence doesn't have the next year that he had this year? Then at that point, can you even make an argument for that?
Yeah. I mean, it'll be Burrow, Herbert, Hurts, and then, Aaron Rodgers and Wilson. I mean, just feels like that's how it's going to be. I mean, I don't know if the Rodgers trade has him changing his salary at all, but yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any sort of drama to it, to be honest.
Well, not that there's drama, but it's like obviously the order makes the biggest difference. But like, what if? I mean, even if Herbert goes after Burrow, like naturally you think, okay, now it's Herbert's turn. What if he doesn't make as much as Burrow? Like, what if Burrow's still like the top dog? That's why I had Burrow at the top, because I think even if Herbert gets his deal done after Joe Burrow, I still think Burrow makes more. Like, I just think you can't convince me that Justin Herbert is worth more than Joe Burrow. Granted, they're in LA. They have a bigger salary cap because they're in a big market. So, there's that argument. But, like, I mean, like, disrespectful to Herbert. He didn't really play his rookie year. He was mostly behind Tyrod Taylor. And then, last year, not this past season, but the year before that, I mean, they floundered literally to get into the playoffs and didn't. Like, they really should have, but didn't because they had that wacky game with the Raiders, which I think is one of the greatest Week 18 games ever. And then, okay, they made it last year, sure. And then look what happened. You're up 30. What was it? Yeah, no, 27-0. You're up 27-0. And I'm not going to put all that on him, obviously. That's why they fired their defensive coordinator. But, I mean, you could say, like, and this is kind of the same thing with Lamar, that people are saying, oh, well, Lamar, has never made it far in the playoffs. Yeah, he won MVP, but he didn't do this and that. I mean, Burrow's playoff resume is the best out of all these guys, including Jalen Hurts, because Burrow made 2 conference title games. Hurts made 1. They both made a Super Bowl. Herbert's got 1 playoff appearance, and it ended as badly as you could ask for in NFL history. So, I mean, like, that was a long tangent, but I still think even with the timing of it, I still don't know that Herbert makes more. I think even if he goes last, I don't think they're going to pay Herbert what they're going to pay Burrow. Like, do you guys think that that's a valid assessment? Because I think it is.
It depends. Does Burrow gets done May 10th through a dart and pick May 10th. I don't know.
That's a good date, actually. That's fair.
Burrow gets done May 10th. What if Herbert doesn't sign this summer? And what if Herbert signs, he agrees to terms on an extension next March? Like, I don't know. It
depends on how they do next year. Like, are they going to make the playoffs? Are they going to choke again? Like, are they going to blow our minds and go to the Super Bowl? It depends.
I don't know. The Chargers, I don't know. I don't know.
You don't know what's going on with Austin Eckler? That whole situation is awkward.
Yeah, but, I think the quarterback, you can kind of make an assessment on the quarterback, aside from that. I don't think you have to say, oh, well, the Chargers, Justin Herbert threw for 5,400 yards, but the Chargers missed the playoffs, so Justin Herbert, you can't make a lot of money now. I don't think that that's true. I don't think that that's the case. You can still pay a guy a lot of money if he's really good and just kind of recognize that, other parts of the team let him down. So I don't know. It just, again,
this debate might be more interesting if it was just like not like $10 million. Like, who cares? Like, I mean, it's like if Joe Burrow makes 53 a year, Justin Herbert makes 52, and Jalen Hurts makes 51. Like, it's like really.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm just getting nitpicky. Oh, I know. I'm just getting nitpicky here. I don't know if you guys have anything on that.
I have no nits to pick. Like, it's like, okay, they're making a lot of money.
I mean, I know we've talked about what we would do with that money. Andrew is going to become, I'm going to say Mike's favorite word, an oil baron. Wait, no, is it oil baron or tycoon? Is that what you would do, Andrew, if you had all that money?
Well, no, I mean, I
said he's gonna buy
wouldn't
an
do
island.
that. I want to be I want to be oil baron rich.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, like so you'd
Yeah,
be
so if I were
baron
oil
rich.
baron rich, I would live at some tropical island on a beach house.
Mike, what did you say you would do?
If I made like $200 million, I have a beach house. Yeah, I have a beach house. I wake up every morning to the sunset. I have a walk on the beach. I'm drinking before noon. Oh, it'd be a great life.
Mike, what did you say you would do if you had that money? I know you said it, but I forgot what you said.
Well, I don't think I said it.
Mike would go to Vegas and spend it all.
It's been a lot, but I don't think you can spend it all.
Honestly, I think I said what I would do last time. I think I joked last time, and I was like, I don't know if I mentioned this. If it were me, I'd probably just give half of it to charity. I don't know. Now obviously I have a different No, I'm serious. Like, I mean, I don't know. In my religion, we don't have to like give that much money. Like, technically, we're only required to give 2.5% of our wealth to the poor. It's actually called zakat. But I mean, me personally, I just feel like if I had that much money, I feel like I would be so tempted to do so much with it. So I feel like if I were to donate half of it, that would like humble me to say, okay, now I can use the rest for like, actual good and pleasure, of course, because you gotta live in this world. You gotta have fun.
I think, I mean, you may
maybe
now
not
you
half of it, but like a quarter, maybe a quarter.
Jackasses, because I say I want to go on a private beach and never be bothered again. And
hey, you can do both.
I'm going to help out the less fortunate.
You can do both. Hey, I mean, you can have both. You can help the less fortunate and live a good life. I mean, you have to tell yourself that obviously it's easier said than done. Like, I mean, I feel like just internally, I don't know, maybe this is a psychological discussion. Naturally, we love money, man. But like, I also think you can convince yourself, like, if there's a greater good to it, then yeah, you can give to the needy and also live a happy life. But I'm just speaking hypotheticals. I'm telling you, I might be saying this, and then you put $200 million in front of me, and then just my brain chemistry flips in like a million different directions. God knows what would happen. But honestly, I would probably join you on that island, Andrew, or I'll buy my own island, and it'll be next to your island, and then Mike will just be in like Vegas watching us on our islands. We'll all be FaceTiming each other. You and I will be next to each other, and Mike will be at the Bellagio in Vegas or whatever that hotel is called. I don't even know. I don't go to Vegas. I'm not a sinner. Well, I guess we're all sinners, but I'm not as much of a sinner. You know what I mean? Because I don't do that stuff. But just to kind of wrap up here, speaking of foolishness and nonsense, because that's the beauty of this podcast is we can be serious and be silly at the same time. I just have to ask you guys, if you had to pick between eating a hamburger or a hot dog, which one would you pick and why?
Well, if I had $100 million, I would never have to pick again. I would just have whatever I wanted at that particular
okay, so you pick between like the most gourmet, like 10-karat gold hamburger and the equivalent like version of a hot dog. Like, which one of those two are you picking?
Hamburger.
See, that's a good choice because actually, before I say why, Mike, what would you pick? Hamburger or hot dog? And you can even make it as fancy as you want it to make it in your mind.
I don't do fancy, but I like both, so I don't have a preference. I think it'd be insulting to my favorite foods to sort of pick between them, like try to pick between. Oh yeah.
Well, neither do I. I'm a very simple eater as well, but I'm just saying, like, if you want to hype it up that much, like, because Andrew's saying, "Oh, we're gonna be rich on an island. Why would I want a hamburger?" Okay, then refantasize it. I'm telling you, man, you gotta go with the hot dog. No, I'm sorry, not hot dogs. Not hot dogs. That was a slip. I promise it was a slip. Hamburgers, because I don't know if you guys have had smash burgers. Silly question. Of course you guys have. Smash burgers, I don't know, man. I could go on and on about just the sensation that eating a smash burger gives you, but I would have to make another podcast for that. But I think we're all in unanimous consent there, so that's good. The reason why I asked that is because I had a hamburger and a hot dog for breakfast yesterday. Don't ask me how or why. I just did. That's a conversation for another day. But it made me thinking, like, what do I like more, the hamburger or the hot dog? See, this is what talking about when we talk about NFL quarterbacks and their contracts and all the money and everything. This is what it does to your brain, guys. Maybe that's just me because it's Ramadan, so my brain's already like in a lot of different places. But I love it. This is awesome. This is great. Well, stay with us because we got more coming up this week. We're going to hear from Duke Tobin, the Bengals director of player personnel. He's going to talk about the Bengals' final thoughts going into the draft. We're also going to hear from Zach Taylor next week, but we're going to talk to Duke Tobin, break that down this week, do another mock draft. And Andrew and Mike are going to pinch hit for me later this week and bring you a special podcast edition. What is that going to be? You have to tune in and find out. Once again, for myself, Andrew, and Mike, I'm Muhammad Ahmad. See you Wednesday.